Hey y'all, welcome back to Sentro School. Today we'll be learning how to do an E-wrap cast on. An E-wrap cast on will give you a nice clean looking edge, and it will also provide you with a bit of stretch or give in your cast on. It is a permanent cast on, which means you would not start your project with waste yarn to then remove it later and bind off those leftover live stitches in some way. It's permanent, so you would start with your main project yarn. Another thing to note about this cast on method, or really any permanent cast on method, is that it will need to be tightened once you take your project off the machine because the needles are stretching the fabric as you knit, so the cast on will be kind of loose because it needs to fit across this stretched out area. So with that, let's get started. To start, grab your yarn, then take your thumb and forefinger and drape the yarn over your two fingers like this. Then grab the yarn tail with your remaining fingers and make sure the working yarn is draped over your thumb, just like this. For the entirety of this cast on, we are going to be doing this one simple move. We are just going to twist our hand counterclockwise, and when we do that, it creates this little loop here. And that's the loop that we're going to put on our needle. Then just crank the handle of your machine to sink that needle a little bit so that the cast on stitch is secure. And you want to make sure that your working yarn is running under this tail. And you can see that it creates this little lowercase e shape. So that's where the cast on method gets its name from. Then we're just going to position our fingers in the same way and do that same move and just twist counterclockwise to create this little loop and put it on the needle. And then just kind of tighten it a little bit. You don't want it too tight, you don't want it too loose. You'll get the hang of it as you keep practicing and keep going. So then you just do that same thing for however many cast on stitches that you want. I'll just do 15, but you can of course go all the way around if you want. So once you've finished casting on, make sure you sink this needle a bit so that your cast on is secure. Bring your yarn under this ridge and then through your yarn and tension guides, and you're ready to start knitting. So as you're knitting your first row, you might notice that you need to give these cast on stitches a little help coming down. That's just sort of the nature of this cast on method. The stitches sort of want to stay up here, and that's not good because then they're not going to knit properly, but it's not like there's nothing wrong. If that's happening, you didn't do anything wrong. That's just how this cast on method is. So just make sure you're paying attention to that, and you should only have to worry about that for the first row. Now I'll continue knitting my little swatch so that we can take it off the machine and finish the final step of this cast on. Okay, so here's my swatch, and as you can see, the cast on is looking a little messy. It's a little loose, so we can go ahead and fix that right now. So here is the yarn tail from our first cast on stitch. And we're actually going to start over on this other side. So we want to find the very last cast on stitch that we made. And if you're doing this with a tube, it's going to be the same. So we can kind of fold this over and pretend like it's a tube for a second. So your tail is going to be right here, and your very last cast on stitch will be just to the right of this tail. So go ahead and find that stitch. I'm working on a panel, so mine's just on the opposite end. And then you're gonna find the stitch that is next to that stitch. And you're gonna wanna just pull on it a little bit, just to tighten it up. Pull on the stitch, and that will tighten that first, or I guess the last cast on stitch that we made. And then we'll move on to the next one. So just here, pull on that, and you see it will tighten that stitch up. So with each passing stitch, you're going to end up with more and more yarn as you go along, and you get to determine how tight or loose you would like these stitches to be. So if you want tighter, then just pull on this big, loop of yarn here more, and if you want it looser, then pull on it less. If you pull them all tighter, then your cast on isn't going to have as much stretch or give, and if you pull them looser, then you're going to have a lot of stretch and give on your cast on edge. So just continue along the bottom of your project until you get to the point where it looks like you should just be pulling on the tail to finish up that last stitch. So that's where I'm at now, and you can just pull on the tail really hard, but that's not the best thing to do. So what I would say is just pull on the tail a little bit to see where it's kind of pulling from. And you can pick that apart just a little. So here, if I pull on this end, that's gonna pull my yarn tail out of my project, which I don't want. So I need to pull on this other end, and that will be tightening up this big giant loop of yarn I have here. I like to just play it safe also and hold on to my yarn tail to make sure that it's not gonna come loose out of my project, because if that happens, then your cast on edge is gonna be messed up. So I would say just hold on to it, be safe, so that you know it's not gonna come loose. So you can pull on the top of your yarn tail here until your final stitch is as tight as you want it, and then pull on the yarn tail to tighten up the top of the yarn tail. And there you have it. It's all done. And you see that the edge of your cast on will look all nice and neat, very even, and it's just really easy and nice and stretchy. So that's all I have for y'all today. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, then remember to give it a like and consider subscribing for more Sentro videos. I hope y'all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.